So John McCain, lover of peace, bringer of comfort, champion of the voiceless, the champion and fighter for the down and out defense contractor. Here's how his death is being. This is the headline from HuffPo. One of a kind. Washington remembers a legend. So I'll start off. I should probably save this. This is probably the closer, but I'm just going to start with it. This is what John Lewis said. Here's what John Lewis said. You know, John Lewis, civil rights fighter, who has said some crazy stuff recently, also stabbed Bernie in the back. Remember that? That was him, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. So he says, Senator John McCain was a warrior for peace. What? Even Bill Nye said, that's just bullshit.
Did he really?
No, he didn't say that.
I'm like, nice, Bill.
The way I handled it was breaking. Representative John Lewis caught plagiarizing The Onion. The guy was So John Lewis, you can say, hey, John was a colleague of mine, and I always admired his honesty and his ability to buck the system when he did. Because there were times he was a maverick, but overall, no, he was a status quo conservative, warmongering, bloodthirsty maniac. In fact, this is from The Nation. These are the countries where McCain has called for U.S. military intervention. That one, all these, right? All that. Oh, Iran, Syria, and here's the redder it is. Seriousness of the threat from John McCain, salivating. That's the red. Libya. He really wanted Libya. He really wanted Syria and Iraq, and Afghanistan, and North Korea. He really wants a war with North Korea, Afghanistan, Syria, Libya. Bosnia, serious Bosnia, Nigeria, then like soundbite, Russia, China, Sudan, Mali, Georgia. I remember when he wanted us to go to war in Georgia. I remember that. We're all Georgians. Remember he said that? Which means we're going to go to war. We're being attacked, so we're going to have to go to war right now. Of course, thank God he wasn't the president because we didn't go. So there you go. That's not even talking about his support for the Contras and all the death squads and all that stuff in South America and Latin America. So, you know who did give him a fitting? Here's something. You want to know? Hey, John Lewis, you know who else gave him a nice eulogy, a nice tweet? Lockheed frickin' Martin. Lockheed Martin, you want to know what they said? Here's what Lockheed Martin said. Senator John McCain was an exceptionally courageous leader and a true patriot who dedicated his life in service to our nation. And by service to our nation, meaning getting more money for companies like Lockheed Martin. We joined the country in mourning his loss. Throughout his career, he rightfully held all of us in the national security industry to the toughest and most demanding standards. Do you see what tough standards we have in the defense industry? What? Yet, no matter how passionate the debate or difficult the message, we always understood it for what it was, a determination to deliver the best capability for our military and men and women in uniform while ensuring the taxpayer interests were properly served. The taxpayer interest, you think that the taxpayer interests are served by giving you guys $20 billion a year or at getting the military $717 billion a year? Do you think the taxpayers are being served, Lockheed Martin? You fucking mass murderers. Here's Daniel O'Meara said, if I'm lovingly memorialized by a massive defense contractor upon my death, you have my permission to spit on my corpse and throw it to a pack of wild dogs. This is worse than NAMBLA sending flowers. Whoa.
Yeah, that's
Whoa. He's right, by the way.
Mm.
He's right, by the way. So, John Lewis, could I drive it home any harder? He's not a warrior for peace? One of the biggest bloodthirsty warmongers in the history of our country, John McCain, never met a war he didn't like, never met a terrorist he didn't want to fund or kill. And here's another one of my great. He said, I hate the gooks. I will hate them as long as I live.
What a hero.
That's John McCain. And here's just some of the people do this. They'll show you, well, look, here's Iraq before. Here's Iraq after. John McCain, that's what he was for. Here's Libya before. Here's Libya after. John McCain. Here's Yemen before. Here's Yemen after. Here's Syria before. Here's Syria after. Jesus Christ. Look at that.
John McCain was a warrior for peace the same way Ron Jeremy is a porn star for chastity.
Ha!
You're just not looking at it the right way.
Nice. In 1973, Representative Lewis, Paul Gottinger wants you to know that in 1973, John McCain spoke out to save the Senate funding for Nixon's secret carpet bombing of Cambodia, which killed 500,000 people. Remember how it works in social media? Advocate for killing millions of people, no problem. Advocate for killing one specific person, you've crossed the line. So here it is from Rolling Stone magazine. McCain was eager to make up for lost time, and the times were favorable to a high-profile veteran willing to speak out in favor of the war. With the Senate moving to cut off funds for the Nixon administration's illegal bombing of Cambodia, the president needed all the help he could get. 2 months after his release, John McCain related his harrowing story of survival in a 13-page narrative in U.S. News & World Report, at the end of which he launched into an energetic defense of Nixon's discredited foreign policy. I admire President Nixon's courage, McCain wrote. It is difficult for me to understand why people are still criticizing his foreign policy, for example, the bombing in Cambodia. That's who John McCain is. A guy who cheers on and shames people who are questioning Nixon's illegal murdering of 500,000 Cambodians. That's who, 500,000. Again, kill 500,000, you're a patriot. Kill one person, you're a maniac. Isn't that weird? Why? Because that helps the military-industrial complex, that kind of thinking. That's who John McCain is, Representative Lewis, and Representative Lewis knows this. Just so you know what he did in Vietnam. Over 200 nights in 1973 alone, 257,456 tons of explosives fell in secret carpet bombing sweeps, half as many as were dropped on Japan during the Second World War. The pilots flew at such great heights, they were incapable of discriminating between a Cambodian village and their targets, North Vietnamese supply lines, nicknamed the Ho Chi Minh Trail. The bombs were of such massive tonnage, they blew out eardrums of anyone standing within 1 kilometer radius. War correspondent James Pringle, who was 2 kilometers away from a B-52 strike near Cambodia's border. It felt like the world was coming to an end, he recalls. According to one genocide researcher, up to 500,000 Cambodians were killed, many of them children. That's what John McCain was cheering on. The bombing and murdering of children. That's what that is. That's what happens. That's why you should all be anti-war. You want some more evidence, Representative John Lewis, that what you said was complete bullshit? Here he is being asked about Tehran. This is right after the Iraq War started. Here he is talking. Here we go.
I guess my question is, how many times do we have to prove that these people are blowing up people now? Never mind if they get a nuclear weapon. When do we send them an airmail message to Tehran?
Hey, why don't we got to remind people that these people are blowing people up, meaning the Iranians. We just destroyed Iraq right next door to them. But it's these Iranians who are homicidal maniacs. I love that. Such fucking blank thinking. So he asked him, when are we going to send an airmail message to Tehran? When are we going to start bombing that country too? And they all start cheering. And John McCain, instead of straightening them out, well, do you remember what he did?
That old Beach Boys song, Bomb Iran. Bomb, 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 bomb. Anyway.
Anyway, bomb, Iran. You know, a country that's in attack us, doesn't have nuclear weapons, so we can wipe them out. Ooh. That's who John McCain is, Representative Lewis. Do you hear that? Room full of fucking maniacs, bloodthirsty maniacs. Let's go to war in Iran. Let's kill some people we don't know in Iran. Let's cheer that on. Because they're in another country. You couldn't cheer on killing people you didn't like in your own country. You couldn't cheer that on. But you can cheer on killing people you don't like in another country who you don't even know. Isn't that weird?
Well, you know, this whole thing, I kind of took the day off of social media yesterday because I had a day trip or whatever, so I didn't see a lot of it until later. And I understand the whole sentiment of let's not speak ill of the dead and stuff like that, and that's fine. But you know what that doesn't mean? That doesn't mean you have to pretend they were something they weren't. That doesn't mean you have to celebrate them or make bogus claims like they were a warrior for peace when that is just totally not accurate at all.
You know what? I think President Bush, though, was a warrior for peace.
Yeah, I think so. He was a good man.
Right? He was a really good man.
He was a good man who just got it wrong. So let's remember the stupid tweet that started this. Senator John McCain was a warrior for peace. He will be deeply missed by people around the world. You mean the people he advocated for killing all around the world? All around the world. Like, as to God, that's such a... he couldn't... By the way, here's a John McCain tweet. Gaddafi's on his way out. Bashar al-Assad is next. This is the kind of bloodthirsty maniac he is. Let's go killing leaders of countries. Let's go kill them. And by the way, Bashar al-Assad is fucking laughing right now. Guess he outlived you. And John Lewis, if you don't remember, let me remind you, you fucking hate John McCain. You think he's a race baiter. You think he's horrible. You know how I know this? Because the New York Times told me you did. This is Congressman rebukes McCain for his recent rallies. This is from October 11th, 2008. Representative John Lewis, the Georgia Democrat and civil rights leader, said Saturday that Senator John McCain and his running mate, Governor Sarah Palin, were sowing the seeds of hatred and division in a way that reminded him of former Governor George Wallace and another destructive... You said he was like George Wallace, the racist. This is John Lewis saying that about John McCain just frickin' 8 years ago. You called him a racist. In a blistering statement reacting to the angry crowds at McCain-Palin rallies in the past week that have shouted "off with his head" and other insults about Senator Barack Obama, Mr. Lewis said, quote, "During another period in the not-too-distant past, there was a governor of the state of Alabama named George Wallace who also became a presidential candidate. George Wallace never threw a bomb. He never fired a gun, but he created the climate and the conditions that encouraged vicious attacks against the innocent Americans who were simply trying to exercise their constitutional rights." That's what you said about John McCain, that he was creating an environment like George Wallace, which is destructive to America, which doesn't stick up for the most vulnerable. That's what he said not even a decade ago. You said that isn't that amazing? You said that in public about him. Now he's a warrior for peace and he's missed all over the world. You mean George Wallace? Do you understand why people don't trust politicians? Do you understand why why do you have to bullshit constantly? This is from the New Republic. Here's where John McCain responded to you. You want to see the love that you guys had for each other? But she also accused Obama of palling. This is Sarah Palin. She accused Obama of palling around with terrorists. It wasn't entirely positive. John McCain says, well, if she attacked Obama and Biden, that is fairly standard. They go palling around with terrorists. And he says, with all due respect, you never heard about when John Lewis said my campaign was worse than the Birmingham church bombing. That may have escaped your attention, huh? It did. I agree. That is bad. Okay, well, that is what he did. When they orchestrated this racism effort against me, maybe Sarah Palin said palling around with terrorists, but the things that were said about me and her were far worse. I'll never forgive John Lewis.
But Jimmy, he said with all due respect, which is something warriors for peace often say.
So I just want to show you again, like Ron said, you don't have to say horrible things about him, John Lewis, but you don't have to lie. So now people have a totally perverted view of history and what warmongers do and their consequences. The guy used calling George Wallace just a few years ago. Now so when should I, which John Lewis should I believe? How about I don't believe you anymore ever? I saw you lie about Bernie. I see you lie about this guy. Is that how you get? So you build up. When you build up enough, is it like a bank account? You build up enough integrity that you can just start lying at the end of it. I got a bunch built up. I can start lying at the end of my life. Just start lying crazily, crazy lies, public crazy lies.
Well, you can also go to Debbie Wasserman Schultz and take out some lies on interest.
At very high interest.
Very high interest.
Very high interest.
You better be sure about those lies.
She's a Debbie Wasserman Schultz, according to Representative John Lewis, that Debbie Wasserman Schultz is a warrior for low interest rates.
She's a warrior for students.
She's a warrior. She's a warrior for a single payer, and she's a warrior for a rational banking system. She's a warrior. Thanks for watching. Please make sure you're subscribed. Even if you think you are, you're probably not. It only takes a second to check, and then you have to ring that bell so they send you a notification when we drop a new video. Otherwise, they won't tell you when we drop new videos. And if you like our show, please help support it. Become a patron. We give you hours of bonus material every week, and we give a live stream. We do a live stream every Saturday at 2 p.m. Pacific time when you could ask us questions and we answer them back. Thanks for your support.